Hey guys, it's Val, and I just wanted to give you guys some updates regarding the podcast. I want to thank you guys so much for getting the podcast to 120 downloads and counting. I also want to thank you guys for your generous donation through the Cash App, and I also want to thank you guys for sharing the podcast and also giving me your time and listening and engaging with the podcast. Moving forward, I hope that you guys can continue enjoying the podcast, and I hope that you guys will continue supporting the podcast to the Cash App and also sharing the podcast to your friends and family. Thank you so much for all that you guys have done so far, and I'll see you guys at the beginning of the episode. Hey guys, it's Val, and welcome to episode 8 of my romantic relationship podcast, where I talk about different dynamics and romantic relationships. So for today, I have a special guest with me. We're going to be talking about what has been her experience like dating, what are her thoughts on certain dynamics and romantic relationships. Without further ado, I'm going to let her introduce herself.
Hello. Thank you again, Val, for having me on your show. My name is Desiree. I am a social worker by trade, by day. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I'm also have a background in dance, and I also am a vlogger. So I do YouTube. I have a IG handle. I'm Virtuous Desi on all of my handles. And I've recently started a IG channel on relationships. So just talking about my experiences and hopefully encouraging some of the men and women out there who are in similar situations.
Right then. So this way, what has been or what is your experience dating so far, ever since you started dating, since like high school and stuff?
Yeah, well, my dating experience is really extensive because always wanted a boyfriend in high school, but that didn't happen. I think in America we call it like being a late bloomer, and I feel that I was just because of I got braces later in life. I was wearing glasses for most of my time until college. I got refitted for some contacts, and it's little things like that I think affected my confidence. I do think that we weigh a lot of our self-worth and value, especially as young people, in a very, celebrity-driven culture. We do value ourselves or place our worth based on those outward things. And it affects our confidence. And really, that's what affects our likability, is our confidence. It's not necessarily whether you have the perfect this or that. But because of that, I felt like I was held back from being serious about pursuing relationships. And I didn't really start dating until like my mid-20s. In college and high school is a great place to find someone. And once you graduate from college, you're not constantly around the opposite sex. And I don't think a lot of women realize once you go off into your career, unless you're surrounded by men, your chances of finding someone become smaller. Yeah. So I mentioned I was in social work. Social workers, we tend to, be in glorified case management positions, mental health, foster care, but those are female-driven jobs. So you're pretty much surrounded by women. So my only opportunities to meet someone was the gym and church. And I finally met someone in my 20s. And I would say from there, I was waiting to meet the right person for me.
Bro, you're ready for Mr. Right?
Yeah, I think that I wouldn't say I had extremely high standards, but I did know my worth, and I wasn't necessarily settling, but I also feel like I didn't date as much as I should have, because I was looking for this particular guy. When I found that particular guy and he broke my heart, I was waiting around for the next guy. And again, I have a lot of thoughts about our generation. I don't think that a lot of guys my age, us millennials, I don't think a lot of guys will holler at a girl in public like they used to, whether you're by yourself or not. And I did look a lot younger than I really was. So when I did go to the mall, I was getting hollered at by a bunch of teenagers, not men in their 20s. Or men older, true story. Yeah.
Okay, so question. You mentioned earlier that you had extremely high standards. So what was those standards that you had?
Well, I would say I wanted someone of a similar faith. I'm celibate until marriage. Okay. in some parts of the world that's not a big deal, but in America that's a high standard because people are, sexual revolution here. We're just doing whatever we want to do, and having babies or killing them or whatever they do as a consequence. But we're just, we're having our quote unquote fun. We're sowing our wild oats. We're doing those type of things. So I don't really believe that's a high standard, but I do understand that in American culture, that is a high standard. And honestly, as far as I have things I'm attracted to, but I have not dated men that are my type. I dated men that are my type as far as muscles, tall. I don't really like pretty boys. I like masculine men. I like men who are taller than me. I like facial hair. I like muscles. I like someone that will treat me with respect. And that's someone that I want to be the father of my children. That's really, do you think that's a high standard? I don't think that's a high standard.
No, I think that's the normal standard. I think that's an achievable standard, to be honest.
Yeah.
Okay, so you say that you would go to the gym, so you would find no one that you find attractive there?
Yeah, I see a lot of good looking men there. And I'm not exactly someone that's gonna go up to a guy. I've tried that. But
okay, you said that you don't see how guys don't really approach or court women like they used to before. So the question is, what changed? What do you think happened that made guys start behaving differently?
Oh, that's easy. I think it's just the feminist movement. I think that it's girls who have been sold this idea that they're a bitch and a boss and they shine like gloss. And I think that some women, are arrogant to an extent, and that, rejection is something I think that is a part of the process. And some young men are just afraid of rejection and need to stop being weak and just understand that rejection is part of being a man, because you're doing most of the pursuing. But to be fair, I think a lot of men aren't sure what to do or how to approach a woman these days, because a woman's reaction can be rude, and that's unnecessary. If a man's not your type, you can politely tell him that he's not your type without acting like he's crazy for trying to approach you. You don't have to put a man down based on maybe the car he drives or where he works or how he looks, or how you can kind of get a sense that someone is looking down on you. I think maybe that might be why some guys are unsure, because they don't want to be rejected. They're not sure how a woman might respond. They might be used to girls pursuing them, and women like me who want to be the one that is pursued, I'm traditional. I kind of get left out because a guy might find me attractive. He might think, well, I'll just wait for her to say something to me. And that's never going to happen. So I can't say never, but it's unlikely that's going to happen.
Well, okay. So did you ever get into any type of relationships at all, though?
Yes, I have. I've had relationships.
Okay, so what do you regret about those relationships, if any?
Oh, wow. Well, I would say in the beginning, I would say I regret putting too much of my heart into a relationship too soon. The first two boyfriends I ever had, I met at church, and I just assumed that they had the same values that I did without really taking the time to investigate that and ask the questions.
Wow.
And and I learned that, it was an affront, and they were in the military. And I know a lot of people, I don't stereotype. I understand everybody's different. But it was military guys. They were going to that church. They were there temporarily, maybe for a few years. But they didn't share they weren't trying to marry me. They were just looking for a good time. If I had investigated that and been more upfront, I would have discovered more. And I regret, this isn't within the relationship, but I do regret not dating more in my 20s. I've made up for that in my 30s, but I wish I had dated more in my 20s.
So you do believe that you should date more?
Oh, absolutely.
So what can you learn?
Well, in dating, I have learned so much about what I want, what men want, I think that you learn that, you can make your list, whether you're religious or not, you can make your list of what you want in a man. Some of those things on your list, the more you date, that changes because you realize what's important and what's not. I think that dating helps you understand how it actually plays out.
So question, since you said that by dating a lot, you have an understanding of what you want and also of what men want. So in your opinion, do you think modern women has an idea of what men want?
No, I don't. I don't think modern women pay attention enough to what men want. And truly, I am a believer, I am a Christian. And one of the things that the Bible says is that the woman was made for the man. The man was not made for the woman. And this is a dynamic that is always going to hold true. And I think that women are more like, well, men need to fulfill what we want. But a woman, it serves her to fulfill what the man wants, if it's fair and reasonable. I think that women don't really think about that, though. I don't think they really sit down and think about the fact that what a man wants is what we need to cater to. I think a lot of women would be offended by that idea.
Wow. Okay. So from all your dating experience so far, what would you say are some of the things that men want, that you've figured out men want?
Well, they want a woman that's going to be supportive, that's going to be loyal. I think some of the trouble with men is that they're not sure what they want either. But I think that the man wants a woman that is going to be loyal, that's going to be faithful, that's going to know how to take care of a house and a home. But they kind of also want that wild girl. That's kind of that dual dynamic there. Okay, so when you say wild, like are you thinking about like wild, like sexually? I would say a woman that gives off that vibe of being, I would say not wild in the streets, but someone that's going to be wild in the bed. If you think about like,
so why can't, as a woman, why can't you guys do that? Why can't you do both? Like, is it really that hard?
Well, no, it's not. I consider myself, and not just me, I have friends who are the same way. We can be ladies in the streets and freaks in the bed as Which Call Us Then, their song. I think that we can be both. I don't think that's an unreasonable thing, but I think that, like I was saying earlier, with me, I think men are looking more, I want that without the commitment of marriage.
Okay.
Yeah. I think a lot of men are afraid to commit to marriage in our generation. Because of divorce, because of this or that or whatever. I think that men are finding it hard to commit for a lot of reasons. There's a lot of options. You have access to many women. I mean,
and then I would like to challenge the idea though, because most men don't have access to most women.
But you have access to options. Like you and I are talking right now because there's something called Instagram.
Yes.
And that's, you know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of avenues to meet different people now. And I think there's a syndrome of, not just with men, women are probably guilty of this too, where there's a syndrome of, there might be someone else out there. So we keep going from person to person to person, and we take for granted, whoever is placed in our life in that moment by God or the universe or whatever you believe in. We're taking that for granted, and we're always going for what's next. I think that that's also another issue why there's a lot of dissatisfaction with dating and relationships.
So you believe that we're always looking for the next best thing because we always believe that there's something better out there.
Yeah, I can't imagine anything else. I could be completely wrong. Just like my last relationship. My boyfriend, he had nothing bad to say about me.
So it was all...
He's like, you're beautiful inside and out, and blah, 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 this. And just making me out to be this wonderful person. But we broke up because it was long distance. He was getting busy with his career. He worked at a nursing home, and COVID and coworkers getting sick. It was just crazy. And he didn't know when we'd be able to see each other again. And obviously this is long distance. So that's a big impact on the relationship. And I told him, I'm a big girl. It's okay. We'll get through this, blah, 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 blah. Based on the fact that we were serious about building a life together. It's not like we were I mean, we had some really deep conversations. We made some plans. Let me just say that. And I felt as if there has to be something else. I mean, I really feel like, and now we had just gotten serious. It's not like we had been dating for years. This was like 3-month relationship. We were just getting exclusive. We were just getting serious. We were about to meet the parents, actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a question.
How
soon do you think is too soon to fall in love? How long do you think like it needs to take you before you actually know, damn, I want to marry that person?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. I think everybody's different. That's hard to answer. I think that
is a week too soon.
It's just a difficult question because I think for everyone it's different. I don't think there's any too soon. I think that, if we understand that love is not just a feeling.
So what is love? That's the next question. What is love to you?
Right. That's kind of the question. Love to me it's about a person's heart and their value to me. I think that a person who has a good moral foundation, we get along with each other, there's that chemistry. I want to be around you. I miss you when you're gone. That means there's a chemistry there. So check, we got chemistry. That's great. We have connection. That's great. We have similar values. We're compatible. Like I said, me and him had a lot of deep conversations. Like there's a lot of things that are lining up. Beyond the feeling though, there's this choice. I think that love is ultimately a choice because the feelings, it goes away. But you still have, and I have the benefit. My parents have been married for 40 years. So I'm one of that, in my generation, I'm the minority, I guess, in that my parents are not divorced. They're married still. So I got to see the good, the bad, the ugly of a long-term relationship, the sacrifices that are made, that you don't always get your way. It doesn't always feel good. Sometimes things are really tough.
Okay, did you ever ask them that question? What has kept them together for so long?
They will tell me love and God. Because even when my mom vents to me, because sometimes she does, she will vent to me about things going on with dad. She always says, I hope you know, though, the love is still there. She always says that because things aren't perfect, but the love is still there. That's a little saying she always says, because I think that that's important. And I know what she means. It's not just, it's a feeling, but it's also, I'm choosing to love this person because I know who they are. I chose to marry this person. I'm in a covenant with this person, And I think that that's important. And I don't know that in our fast-paced culture, I don't really know that people, I think it's just too easy for people to walk away.
Okay, so wouldn't you say that could be a problem for dating though? Because when you date, like people, when you develop a pattern of dating, doesn't it just like make it easier for you to walk away in your future marriage too?
I do.
So do you think dating is necessary?
I do. I think, and I was just talking to someone about this because we can call it dating, we can call it courtship, we can call it whatever you want to call it. But what we're really talking about is the process in which you get to know another person to find out if there's someone you want to spend your life with. I just think it's just access to so many people. I mean, I used to be so heartbroken when my relationships didn't work out with people that I met in my local area organically, like in person. But this last relationship, it was really hard. But I'm scaring myself in that it's getting easier.
It's getting easier.
Yeah, it's getting easier to let go of someone I care so much about. I still miss him, but I can't make someone want to be with me that's not with me. So I move on, right? I mean.
Okay, so question, do you move on because you know that it's going to be easier for you to find somebody else?
I know that that's possible. I mean, it's not as devastating maybe as if let's say there was no online, there was no match.com. Let's just say, I think that if we were living in a different time where access was less, I think, yeah, I do. I think things would be completely different. I think that a person would be willing to go through harder times together. We would be more forgiving, you know, and stuff like that.
So basically having option, because even I realized this too. When I'm trying to buy something at the store, the more option it is, the more time I spend looking at the thing I'm trying to buy. Because there's so much variety, I don't know which one to choose.
Right. Yeah, I know. Yeah. I mean, options could be a great thing, but it's also like, eventually you got to make a decision, right?
Yeah.
You know, and you have to stick with it.
Yeah. Okay, so question. So do you believe in the 50-50 dynamic in marriage, where like everybody, like everyone in the relationship can do each other's roles as good, or if not better than the other person?
Like each person giving equally?
No. So like 50-50 means that, like, so you pay half the bills, your husband pay half the bills, he do half the house chores, you do half of the house chores, you know, all the equal partnership thing, you could say.
Yeah, no, well, I don't think that marriage was designed to be like that. There's give and take on both sides, absolutely. But I think that's going to look different for everyone. And I think that if you go into a marriage automatically saying it has to be 50-50, that it has to add up, like how much I do has to add up to how much he does, I don't think that that's realistic. But I do think it's a conversation that needs to take place, like expectations of who does what. Oh, absolutely. That's what premarital counseling is for. But I don't think you should go into premarital counseling trying to force everything to be 50-50, because I don't know, everyone's different. You may not want him to cook. You want him to cook half the days. Maybe he can't cook. Just forget it. Okay, so, you know, and so if he's not doing that, what you going to try to find something else for him to do to make it 50-50 again? I mean, that just sounds like, you know, and I understand the intention behind that. It's to make things fair, and it's hopefully to minimize unnecessary disagreements. But again, I think that's what premarital counseling is for, so that you understand what those expectations are, so that, you know, if a woman, for example, feels overwhelmed with kids, I'm cooking, I cleaned all day, and you're coming home, I don't want you to ask me how my day was. I want you to ask me, how can I help you? Because a woman, I want you to help. I don't want to talk about it.
Here's a question. Do you believe in gender roles?
Gender roles? For me personally?
Yeah.
Yes, I do. I don't believe in, I mean, I can't speak for anybody else's relationship, but I absolutely.
But do you believe like those work though? Do you believe like if you had two marriages and one had gender roles and one didn't, which one do you think would be more successful, like overall?
Well, I don't think that would be a deciding factor of how successful it is. Yeah, I don't. I think it just depends on who goes into it. I mean, me personally, I think it could work. You know, I don't know. You're going to need a special guy and a special woman in order to kind of reverse gender roles or have them kind of mesh together in a weird way. But it happens. I mean, I just know for me, I believe that I'm traditional, and I want a traditional man. I don't want to be the primary earner in my home. And I mean, just to answer your question, I guess I would say I think that traditional gender roles are what's best for most people. But when you get down to two people coming together, you know, that's really a conversation they have to have amongst themselves. But I certainly think that a woman, because of, you know, we were designed to carry the baby for 9 months. We're designed to wean the baby for months. I mean, it's kind of hard for us to reverse the role of leaving the house every morning. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah,
so biology has kind of made that decision for us, and I think we can't ignore that. I do think that traditional gender roles are ideal.
Okay, so welcome to you finding a partner though. How important is look and or sexual attraction? So how important is sex in a relationship?
Oh gosh, I mean, it's important. Attraction is important. I think that with women, it's not always looks. I think a lot of it has to do with how a man treats us. I fall in love with a man based on how he treats me, his faith, how he treats others.
And those muscles.
Yeah. But you know what? I've dated guys who physically were everything I wanted. My God, help me, Jesus. But their personalities made them unattractive after a while. Yeah. And that was a lesson I never forgot, because it happens, you know. And I know that men, it's the same way with men. I mean, you can have a beautiful woman, all of the, you know, whatever you're looking for, but her personality has to match up, right?
Yeah, it does. So the next question would be, is sex a gift or a duty in a relationship?
In a relationship? Oh gosh, you ask good questions.
Thank you. all those are questions that I struggle to find an answer that I can apply to most situations, basically. Because like, I don't know if it's like because especially like when it comes to marriage, because like the one thing I'm afraid of a marriage is that there's going to be no sex, or it's going to be unconditional, basically, and then that's going to start to put an end to the marriage real quick. So that's what I'm asking. Exactly. Is that a duty, or is that a gift that you give like the person every time they take out the trash or do the laundry or something like that?
Oh, well, I'm leaning towards it's a gift, but it's a gift that you are giving them not because they're taking out, not because of what they do in the marriage, but it's a gift because you are married. And I know that sounds like duty, but if you're agreeing to marry someone, I do think that the giving of your body should not be conditional once you have come together and made that covenant, that binding agreement of marriage. Because
so you would say sex is a gift?
I
your
would.
Husband.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that, but I'm prepared to give that gift to my husband even when I'm tired, or, you know, he just did something that made me upset. Either I'm going to talk about it and deal with it or not, but I'm not going to use sex in my marriage as a punishment to my husband. I think I know that that's a mistake. Just from my research as a counselor, that's a mistake. You know, women do it, but it's a mistake. And I'm not saying that it's just something that you should feel coerced to do. Never. But I do think that using sex as leverage is a mistake in a relationship.
Okay, so from your research, like, what would you say like are the driving force behind all those failed marriages? And is it really true that women are the ones that are leaving the marriages like 70 to 80% of the time? And why?
The latest research, I didn't know it was that high, but it might be. I know that the majority of women are leaving marriages. You know, I thought it was more around 60%, but it might have gone up. I wouldn't be surprised. Like I said, I think that women are being fed, you know, the media are feeding women a message that's making them think that they're I don't know the right word, but that they're really what's most important in a relationship. And I would say why? That depends. I mean, I think that's a very dynamic question, because women who leave marriages for legitimate reasons, you know, has been adultery. You know, statistically speaking, men are more likely to cheat than a woman. But women do cheat too.
Is it cheating or is it having sex?
Well, if you're married, it's cheating. You know, it's cheating. I mean, and again, that's what that premarital counseling is for. So you know the expectations, and not to play around with that word cheating, but if you see having sex and cheating as two different things, then your wife has a right to know that, right? If you're trying to hide it, well, then there's something wrong right there. I would say, you know, illegitimate reasons that women leave marriages, it's just simply being unhappy. And, you know, women are unhappy.
So what do you think are making women unhappy though? Since like women nowadays, I feel like have the most amount of reasons why they should be happy. They can work wherever they pleases, they can do whatever they want. There's nothing that somebody wants to do that they can't do. So why are they so unhappy? Especially in the marriages, like why are they so unhappy if it's not for like legitimate reasons?
Yeah, That is true. And I think it's because, again, women are always I think they let this idea that if I have as many privileges as a man, I'm going to be happy. The grass is always greener on the other side. So when women didn't have this or didn't have that, they didn't have the vote, they couldn't buy land, they couldn't sell land, they couldn't get out of a divorce for no reason, they were unhappy. Everything's unfair. But now that they have that and they're still unhappy, for my belief system as a Christian, I believe it's because God has designed a woman to be a helpmeet and to serve as a wife. And I think that being a wife and a mother is what makes most women most happy. And I think that women want to be loved in a certain way. And I just think if we as a society taught our sons how to love a woman and taught our women how to respect a man, I think that things, if we started early with some of these things, our relationship dynamics would be a little bit different. Maybe a lot different. I don't know.
So basically all the lies. So you believe that a lot of the reason why most women are not happy is because of the things that are being spread in the media, saying that the kids doesn't make women happy. As long as they can have the same thing as a man, they should be happy. But it's proving out not to be so. So what do you believe can fix this?
I think women being honest about what it is that they really want without any fear. Because I think a lot of women are afraid to admit that, I would like to be a wife. Matter of fact, I'd like to be a stay-at-home wife. Like, a lot of women wouldn't admit that.
Why would they not? Because I'm pretty sure guys would work so hard to give that to them. Like,
you do have, men who have been displaced by all of this feminism. They've kind of been displaced, and men can be lazy. Men can, I've talked to men who are like, I don't know if that's going to happen, but I think that women are afraid to ask for that because they don't think it's possible. And I think they almost think they're not supposed to ask for that anymore. I think that women associate traditional roles as oppressive, and that's not true. There were bad things that happened, but it wasn't the majority. I think that women are most happy. Most women. Now, some women are not called to domestic life, and that's awesome. Like, be an entrepreneur, be a lawyer, run the whole country, do whatever. But for the majority of women, and that's what I'm talking about here, I think that there is a call in a woman's soul to be a wife and a mother. And I think so many women are unhappy because we're chasing after things that we think are going to make us happy. That's not. And it's not just the careers, it's the looks, it's the jewelry, it's the things, the cars, the Instagrammable, that stuff that make great pictures, but it's not truly making us happy. And I think a lot of women need to do some counseling, men and women. I think that because, marriage is not going to solve all of this either,
It's a question. So if you could give an advice to like young men, what would you advise them to like do in the face of all of this nonsense happening in like the dating scene? Like, what would you tell them to do in order to like put them in a position where they could, the men, like a woman like you, like the type of woman that you are describing?
Well, one of the first things they need to do, I would say, is give themselves a time frame if they need to. But I think that there needs to be an accountability to find a wife and start a family at some point in their lives, when they feel like they're ready. I think that there's this prolonged adolescence, especially in Western culture. I would encourage a young man to find a mentor, an older guy that is where he wants to be, and get a mentor, learn a trade. Don't automatically assume college is your answer. I would say get yourself in a position where you know what you want out of life, including what kind of woman you want, because men can cause a lot of damage by wanting to just get out here and have your fun. Bang this girl, bang that girl. Well, I got her, maybe I can get this girl, and not really ever settle into being a husband and a father. Women with broken hearts are the ones that tend to drift more over to the feminist stuff. And
okay, so question: what do you think? So what do you think of hookup culture? Do you think it's good, it's bad, and what do you think of the consequences of that?
Oh, I think it's done more damage than we thought it would. I mean, like I said, I give yourself a time frame. I mean, as a Christian, I don't think that there should be any hookup culture. Just that disclaimer. But just talking to a general public, I would say give yourself a time frame. I mean, eliminating the dangers of STDs and all this other stuff that can possibly happen when you're just in this hookup culture. I just think that give yourself a time limit. Like, don't be a 30-year-old man and you're still on Tinder looking for whatever you can find, and you know that you're lonely deep down inside, but you don't want to commit to a woman because you're looking for, I don't know what they're, I mean, I guess you want to marry Kim Kardashian. I don't know what men are waiting on.
Okay, so do you believe that men, even us, have like our standards for women are too tight? Okay, so from your dealing with men, what have they like demanded of you that you couldn't provide?
Well,
what do you think that we are asking that's like such a stretch?
Of all the men I've dated, only one demanded something of me that I couldn't give, and he was wanting big titties and big booty, and that was his thing. And so he only wanted to be friends with me. And unfortunately, I was in love with this guy, but I don't know why, looking back now. But that was really the only guy I've ever dated that has put, now, not to say that there's other men who didn't have those expectations. I believe I've dated, I date men of all different races. And I believe I've dated men outside my race who were seeing where this would go, but they were never planning on putting a ring on it. So I think that from my personal experience, I haven't necessarily experienced that, but I do know from what I'm hearing, I hear a lot of men talking about the size of their boobs or the hourglass shape, which I understand. You have to be sexually attracted to your wife, but how much of that your preferences are influenced by the culture and what's popular, and you just make sure that whatever it is that you are turned on by, it's genuinely you. And it's not, watching too much videos. Okay,
then. So when it comes to the ladies, though, what would you tell the ladies? Like, what would you tell a young lady to do that would make her like a good, respectable girl? Like the type of woman that a man that you just described, a man of character, would want to marry.
Well, first, learn to cook and clean. I would say that. Learn to cook.
Really? So they shouldn't listen to Cardi B?
No, definitely not. Oh, that was so funny. No.
I mean, we saw what happened. She couldn't cook, she couldn't clean, and she couldn't keep a man either.
Yeah. Don't go down that road. And again, for, everyone needs their time frame. I mean, if you want to, but put a time frame on it. If you want to be the stripper chick doing crazy stuff in college, leave that in college. But I think the skills that young ladies need is emotional intelligence. That would be another thing. Because.
Okay, so what do you mean by emotional intelligence?
Emotional intelligence is understanding what to do with your feelings. Women are emotionally sensitive, and that's a good thing, actually. Okay. But in an unhealthy situation, I think that women are constantly being driven by feelings and impulses of their feelings. And I think that causes problems. Parents who give into their children's tantrums, I think, are setting their children up to be grown men and women who don't know how to handle no. And that's just a totally psychological deepness right there just then. But what I'm trying to say is that I think that a woman needs to learn how to regulate her feelings so that she's not driven by that her feelings are not her God. That, yes, you feel these things, they're valid, but don't let them drive your decisions. That's emotional intelligence. Investing in emotional intelligence. And I think that's important for young ladies.
Okay, so the first thing that you tell them to do is learn a skill, so like learn how to cook and clean, and then learn to control their emotions. Anything else that you would tell them?
I would say, that's a good one. I would say keep your legs closed. I would really encourage. I would encourage young ladies to.
Why would you do that though? Why would you tell them the secret?
Oh goodness, I think, and I'm not even talking about marriage. I'm talking about, sex is something that needs to be done with someone that you are completely convinced loves you. I think that, sex is a spiritual thing as much as it is physical, and I think that girls, we do each other a favor as women by not giving out that cookie every time, because it's just, men will expect that, and can you blame them?
So wait, what you just said was so powerful. You said that like you girls can fix the problem by holding each other accountable, because when one start giving it, the other person start giving it, and then you flood the marketplace with so much supply.
Right.
And then that makes it less valuable.
Right. Exactly. I like the way you said that. But it doesn't work unless the majority of the women are doing this. See, it can't just be one or two that are staying celibate. It takes a village of making that right decision. And that's how it used to be, 70 years ago. But now,
And so what are the consequences of not keeping your legs closed as a young woman?
I think that it distorts a man's view of a woman. I do. I think that this is nothing against prostitutes, but I think that, they have an industry, they have a place in town. I just don't think that a lady that is serious about being a mother, being a wife, should, be constantly giving that cookie out like that without there being some sort of at least love, if not the commitment of marriage, which is what I'm going for. But I think that being pressured to do it, or feeling like, what's it called, a whole phase?
Yeah, in college
women
or high school.
Women are not, we do not benefit from a whole phase. I don't care what, you
gain experience.
Well, that is true. I'm not saying wait until marriage for everybody. I'm just saying you need to make sure it's a pleasant experience, because I feel like if we're all going through whole phases, it collectively, I don't think that's working for women as a whole. Because when does all this end? That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm seeing in culture and society today. It doesn't end. People are in their 30s and you're still in your college sowing wild oats, going wild, whole phase, whatever we're calling it nowadays. When does this stop and you actually get serious about,
So you see that it's hurting women because it's giving men like a negative or skewed view of women, right? So how is it affecting the women? So what are the women not getting that they might want to get?
A ring. We're really we're oversimplifying a lot of this, but for the sake of what we're discussing, I do feel like that's one of the things that's contributing to. There's so many ways to get a cookie without a ring today. What's the point?
Yeah. You're right, because if you go 70 years ago, before the guy had access to you, he would have to marry you, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
Because people wouldn't give that up, and then but not ever since the sexual revolution or the birth control, I believe everything went downhill from there.
Exactly. You
So,
would
okay.
have to get through a woman's father to even be alone with her.
Okay, do you think body counts should matter? So let's say I'm a guy and I like this girl, but she have like a 10 or like a 10 to 20 body count. Do you think I should go for that?
It depends. My opinion of that is it is where she at now and where she's going. Because I understand what you're saying, but I do think that people make mistakes, and if body counts don't matter with men, they can't matter with women. We can't have it both ways. That's a double standard. Because, I wouldn't necessarily, I'm turned off by a man who has 3 different kids from 3 different women. That's a turn off for me. And I just think that I would want to know what that young lady has done in the last couple of years. I think that should make your decision. It shouldn't be, well, if she's like 25 and she's got a body count of 15, well, was that 15 in college or you know what I'm saying? I think there should be some grace there, because that it's a double standard. If not, because
Okay, so what do you think about the like women deciding to like freezing their eggs and like having kids, like trying to get married at like age 35, 40, 45? Like what age range would you try to encourage young women to try to lock it down? Between the 20s and or should they have the career first and then try to do it at the 45? What would you encourage women? Which one do you see has the most success rate to produce like a happy, healthy relationship?
Yeah, I would say after 25, but the reason for that is because, again, the way we're raising our children. So the answer to that question is, if we prepare our children, at young ages, you've got, the playing of the house, or you're encouraging a child to think about the fact that one day he's going to be a father and she's going to be a mother. If we start early, I think that age would be different. But I think in Western culture, we have this prolonged adolescence that I don't know if the success rate for earlier than 25, I think is just because of the immaturity of our culture, is what I'm trying to say. But I think that a young lady, when she turns legal age, was it 18? I mean, if you find a good man and you want to get married, get married. I don't think she should choose college. If you've met a good man that's going to provide for you, that's going to put a roof over your head, that you're in love with, why choose college over getting married to that guy? Because I guarantee you're going to regret it 10 years later when you're still single.
Wow. Okay, so question. Okay, so I was going to ask, what do you think of the I don't need no men, Because that's, you go to college. If you get your degree, you have a job, you have a house, a car. I mean, what's the point of marriage? What's the point of marriage? If women can do whatever they want now and they can do the same thing that a man would provide, then they don't need a man. So why should they fuck marriage then? Yeah.
Well, that I don't need no man thing comes from a perspective of anger and frustration. And I think that comes from a perspective that's looking at it solely as an economic exchange. Marriage is not an economic exchange anymore. Marriage is a spiritual partnership. People are marrying because they're in love. People are marrying because they want companionship. No, I don't have to marry a man because I don't know where I'm going to be when my parents die. For most women, they're not in that situation, especially not in Western culture. Yeah, I have a job, I have this and that, I have the other. But since I've been a young lady in college, I've been looking for the love of my life. I'm in the same situation as some of these other chicks, but that's not a lack of trying. But I would say, that's why it's different. You have to know the backstory. But I think that a lot of women, I think that I don't need no man thing is coming from the wrong perspective, because in fact you do, because a lot of the women that are on pills and depressed and are sitting talking to me are upset because it's about relationships.
Wow. So Is it because like they tried to find a man and they couldn't, or they didn't prioritize it?
Well, I think it's more complicated than that. I think that some of them have just been heartbroken. You know, they felt like they were there for their man, and you know, either they made one mistake and he ends it when they dealt with all his mistakes, or you know, they were never married to the person that, you know, they were having children with and all this stuff, and they walk away, and what now? It's a lot of different reasons, you know, but I think that you know, a lot of women don't deal with their demons, you know, and we need to. I think that if we can normalize, you know, counseling, coaching, if we could get mentors, I think that would be beneficial in our culture. You know, we need to normalize that because we need help. We're communal people. If COVID has taught us anything, we are a communal people. We need community. We need one another.
Well, thank you so much, Desiree, for coming to my podcast and answering all those questions. Any last advice do you have for the men and women that are listening to you and that do want to get into a relationship, don't want to keep getting hurt, but want something long term like marriage? Any last advice that you have for them?
Do the inner work to get yourself right as far as any abandonment issues, fears that you have. Deal with those things, and then make a commitment to commit to someone. Commit to commitment. I think that we don't want to just get into marriages as broken people. I think we commit to do the work to heal yourself. No one's perfect. And commit to commitment and stop looking for some perfect Instagram model that doesn't really exist and doesn't look like that 24/7. I promise you. So that's in closing. Yeah, that's would be I guess closing remarks.
All right then. Okay, so let's say that anyone that's listening right now would like to maybe get some coaching with you. Where can they find you?
They can find me on Instagram. It is Virtuous Desi. That's DEZI. D as in David, E as in egg, Z as in zebra, I. You can send me a DM. I'm also at virtuousdesi@gmail.com. You can send me an email there if you want some further inquiries on how to deal with loneliness, how to build yourself up to be ready for dating or courtship or whatever it is that you're trying to do. I would be happy to help.
All right then. So don't worry, guys. I'll be putting all her information down below. So her Instagram, her email, and her relationship IGTV Instagram there too. So I'll be putting everything down there just so you guys can have resources to connect with her if you guys have any other questions. So thank you so much, Desiree, for coming.
Thank you.
And I'll see you guys in the next episode. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.